I don't know if you realize this, friends, but we're not here to just talk about things. We're here to get better. We are here to be the best that we can be. It takes work. It takes more than just talking about it. It takes more than just wanting to be the best you can be. It takes work to create something new within yourself, a positive culture within yourself where negativity just cannot breed or grow or survive. And that's what we're going to talk about today on The Coaching Life, episode number 79. Get your notebook out, get your pen out, get ready, because this is going to be a journey. Let's go.
Welcome to the Coaching Life podcast. I'm Pat Martin. I'm here with my buddy, Coach Chris Stewart. Coach, how you feeling this evening?
I'm feeling good, feeling fine.
Me too, man.
Feel like pursuing excellence today.
Ooh, good spot. This is our second episode in our Hard Hat series of the Coaching Life podcast. We're going to talk about three more topics, I think, that
I think we'll have time for three.
That made George Boiardi. almost like Chef Boyardee, but just a quicker.
That is a way to think about it. Yeah, the reason why we're emphasizing this is I feel like I owe the Boiardi family an apology after going back and listening to last week's episode, because I spent the first 25 minutes or more calling him Biardi. Or Biordi. Biordi, I think. George Biordi.
Something. I was saying it right to begin with, and then at some point I forgot what I was thinking and said it a different way.
Well, I've confused you probably. You're like, well, maybe it is Biordi. I don't know. And it's weird. It's one of those things where you have no idea. You ever hear a sermon or a speech and someone is pronouncing something wrong, or they're saying the wrong name for someone that they know what they're talking about. You're right. Like they're talking about Isaac, but they keep saying Isaiah. And it's like, I know he understands who he's talking about here, but it's just it's one of those, I don't know. There's gotta be a literary name for that where your mind says one thing, but your voice says the other, and you don't catch it.
It's like reading those backwards sentences. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you can read this, you're of the top 2% in the world that are able to do that. So,
right.
Yeah, I think I've never ran into anybody that couldn't read those things.
I know. I guess you and I know all the top 2% of the people in the world.
Yeah, I guess so. Right.
We only hang out with those people. So it's Boiardi then, George Boiardi from the Cornell lacrosse team. We've dedicated an entire series of episodes to. We don't know how many episodes there will be, but this is technically our was it our second or third one?
Yeah, this is our second one. Well, it's our
We
third
told the story 2 episodes ago, and then last week we dedicated an episode to talk about 3 of the ways to be a great teammate. And these are in memoriam to George Boiardi, because he was such a great teammate, and of course he was actually killed on the lacrosse field. He died on the lacrosse field jumping in front of a pass, and a ball hit him in the chest, and he went into cardiac arrest there on the field and died sometime in the early 2000s. I don't have the exact date, but
I came across that in my studies. I can't remember it offhand. So, but yeah, and we're not making these topics up. They were actually created by his team.
Yeah.
And we're actually pulling them from a book written by John Gordon, who's I guess. Coach, I feel like he's one of your favorite authors, and he's quickly becoming one of mine.
Without a doubt.
His book is called The Hard Hat, which is very convenient, and it makes a lot of sense because it's not easy to do some of these things.
Right.
If you're preparing to do it, if you want to know how to be a great teammate and you want to get there, your first step, put on the hard hat.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
We're going to start today with the topic of pursuing excellence.
Yes.
So it's the 4th way to be a great teammate. Pursue excellence.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that?
Yes. One of the things that George Boiardi's teammates said about him in context of this particular point of pursuing excellence is they said that George didn't just want to be better, he took action to get better. And when I think about that, it causes me to think, well, what does that look like? I mean, what does that, it's because I think it's easy to talk about, you and I say it all the time. Hey, get better. Just get a little bit better today. There's their whole podcast. Joe Ferraro has a 1% Better podcast where it's completely dedicated to that. How can we just get a little bit better every day? And he does a great job of spelling it out. Basically every episode is, here's one way that you can get better. But I think the point about this, is that there's wanting to do something, and then there's taking action to actually make that come into fruition, right? And that was, they said, one of the biggest noticeable differences in George is that he really tried to get better. One of his coaches actually explained it like this. They said, in the weight room, he tried to get stronger.
Seems simple, doesn't it?
It does. But he's not just in there like going through a routine, right? He's consciously, intentionally thinking about, I want to get stronger. And so what do I have to do? I've got to lift a little heavier every single day. I got to do this. He said when he was in running sessions, he tried to get faster. He wasn't just doing sprints because it was part of practice. He actually literally tried to get faster. When he was practicing his skills, he consciously tried to get better. I mean, and those seem like simple things, like you said, but it's something I wonder sometimes, do we actually think about this?
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, and I don't think we do as much, and simply because, like what we said a few seconds ago, it's not easy. Mm-hmm. It's difficult to do this, and it's sometimes it's hard to visualize because we live in a world and a society that wants instant gratification. Everybody knows that. That's a buzz phrase that's been around for a while now. But if you think about it, it's all around us, and it's it's baked into everything that we do basically. And that's it's why we enjoy some of the things in our lives that we enjoy, kind of like video games. I know how much you love video games, Coach, so I'll throw that one out there for you. You see a lot of value in video games, right?
What was it I texted you this week? It was a little bit of a rant, wasn't it? Not a bigger waste of time in the world than a video game or something like that.
Wow. Yeah. I thought I hurt your feelings.
Probably lost a lot of friends out there now. So.
At any rate, I ran across a kind of a like a report or a little review of the Hard Hat book, and it was done by this guy named Eric Reagan, and I really liked what he said. I know it's the concept comes out of the book, but he said two things that really stick out to me as far as what it means to pursue excellence. And I think anybody can kind of make this a part of whatever they want to get better at, in order to get better at. And the first thing is, each day it's important to wake up and strive to be better than you were yesterday. Right. And that's a John Gordon number one principle. Right. I mean, that's a
Gordonism right there.
Yeah. There you go. Gordonism. And this next one is too. But, every day you wake up and strive to be better than you were yesterday. And it got me thinking, a lot of our like our weight training programs, or even our personal instruction when we go and we do some strength and agility, or just regular agility, a lot of those things don't happen every day of our lives, especially in most strength training programs. You're skipping days so that you can give your muscles time to rest and then respond to the stimulus that you give it the next time you work out. But I think one of the fail points there is that people think, well, I'm working out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so on Tuesday, Thursday, I really don't have anything to do to get better, right? Yeah. And if you have the focus of, okay, no matter what's on my schedule today, I'm going to find a way, and maybe you are able to schedule, what you want to do to get better than you were yesterday. But no matter what's on your schedule, I want to find a way to be better than I was yesterday. And it doesn't have to be huge leaps and bounds better. It doesn't have to be a huge increase. As a matter of fact, the second point that he brings up, and it's another, as you say, Gordonism, is the 1% rule.
Yeah.
Just be 1% better, right? When you're in the weight room, go 1% harder. When you're out doing skill work, do it 1% longer, right? If you're studying, study 1% longer than what you normally do, 1% more. And it's that small increase day after day after day that allows you, one, to, master what you aspire to be good at. And two, it helps everybody around you as a proxy. You're being a better teammate.
Yeah. That's so often the overlooked aspect of this, the overlooked benefit is that it reciprocates itself. It helps other people around you. And then if they're getting better as well, they're having greater excellence in their life and they're pursuing, positive energy, then it reciprocates and it comes back to you. And it just, you create you create a new culture is what you create, a different culture.
Yeah.
In whatever it is that you're, in your team, with your workplace, with your family. And that's just what this stuff, all three of these things that we're talking about today, I think all fit together. They all work together. And it's good that we're beginning with just pursuing excellence, because that's like the overarching theme for the other two. One of the things that Gordon says is that everyone wants to do what the great ones do, but very few are willing to do what they did to become great. We see where a person is at a certain point in their career, whether it be their sports career or what it is that they've accomplished, and we're like, I want that. I would like to have that. And I want to, and then we ask, right? What do you do to get there? Well, the answer isn't always very easy. The answer is pretty tedious sometimes. Sometimes it's not flashy because it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And that's where it comes down to doing what they did to get there. Otherwise, you're not going to get there.
Absolutely. And the trick is, I think, over time is when you see the results. It's not going to be tomorrow. You know what I mean? You can find satisfaction in knowing that, you've increased your effort. But you might not see, necessarily a result of that effort. And that comes over time. And that's where I think a lot of people get hung up, because they want to see that, immediate result. And that's just not how things work. It's not how things happen. That's getting lucky, right? If something in your life happens that changes your displacement in life drastically from one day to the next, I guess it could be positive or negative. That's there. You probably don't have much control over those things, because if you think about it, that's not really how life works, for the most part, anyway. I guess that's not entirely true, but I would say more often than not, it is.
Sure.
Otherwise, everyone would do it, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
And that's the thing. Not everyone's willing to do what it takes to see those results over time.
Yeah. And it's
pursue excellence.
I want to say this too, and this is actually going to sort of harken back to something that you said in our last podcast that I didn't fully appreciate why you were saying it. But then when I was listening to the podcast episode the next morning, and this is why I enjoy listening to our podcast, because believe it or not, I learned something that I didn't realize that that's a really good point, because it's one thing to be sitting and having a conversation with you. Sometimes, I know you've got some notes in front of you. I do have things in front of me. You have things you want to bring to it. I have things I want to bring to it. And I try to listen to what you're saying so that I can actually have a conversation. But sometimes, even though I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm still formulating what I want to say, how I want to respond to that, and I miss it. You were saying something last week you called it nerd speak, because you're talking IT language about systems. Yeah. And you said that there's no way I'm going to be able to reiterate what you said exactly when it comes to IT systems. But I finally got, like, as I was listening, I'm like, dude, this is such a huge point that we should have elaborated on, but I didn't think about it at the time. And I'm glad I'm thinking about it right now, because I think, and you might have to reiterate this, the system, there's a system that is basically influencing every little thing that's taking place inside of a set of data points or whatever. I don't know, Pat, help me out here.
There's one driving system, right? I mean, in an IT infrastructure, you have a bunch of systems, different types of systems, different purposes. They're made different. They work different. But those systems typically have a driving system, a master system that makes everything else work around it. Right. Yes. So, if one process is over here doing something, it's doing it because that master system said, hey, here's some data, here's some information, here's an opportunity, here's a command, go do what you do well. Right. And it gets that and it moves forward. And that's kind of the point that I was trying to make. And I think the point, well, go ahead. Tell me where
here's
the
question.
That correlates.
This is the question that I want to ask everybody from that metaphor. What's your system look like? Your life. What does your life system look like? Because sometimes I think what we need and what we don't understand is when we're saying, well, yeah, I want to pursue excellence and I want to do this and I want to do that. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to diet or I'm going to exercise or and you write down all these goals. But here's the reality. You're not gonna if you try to do it within the same system that you're living in now. You've got to create a new system for yourself and you got to sometimes shock it, right? You got to completely shock the way that you normally live. And it has to be sometimes a radical change. And, for example, if you're going to have a difficult time staying disciplined to working out every day, you better find a time that you normally wouldn't ever conceive of that you would do this, but it's going to be open every day. Like, for example, this is why a lot of people, I'm not someone that says you have to get up early in the morning, but this is why a lot of people do, because some of the most free time you have is early in the morning. It's earlier than what you typically get up. And so they create a new system for their lives. And if you're going to get up earlier, that means, guess what? You got to go to bed earlier. You got to completely rearrange things. And I think that the idea of having a system in your life, and that's going to be true for everything that we talk about today. This next point, especially, and the following one after that, especially, you've got to realize, okay, if these are things that are skills that I can get better in, then how am I going to get better in them? Well, I got to have a way that I'm going to respond to things when I'm tempted to respond negatively, for example. I'm trying to speak without giving our next point. Should we just say it? The next point
we can just say it.
Is sharing positive and contagious energy. Share positive and contagious energy. Well, how are you going to be that kind of a person if that's not who you normally are? Right. You need a new system.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point. Absolutely. A different perception, right?
Yeah.
Perspective, maybe. That's weird. I had a conversation with a friend one time. This is a little bit off topic, but it's kind of the same concept. I can't remember exactly what we were talking about, but he went back to smoking. And he said, 40 years ago, everyone was smoking cigarettes, right? And it's because it was being marketed as something that was cool and something that wasn't unhealthy and something that everybody did. So it was being positively marketed as something that, everyone should be doing. And he said the way that everyone got off of that, at least the majority of people, I think, we have less smokers now than we have for a long time.
Absolutely.
Those numbers just keep going down, right? And he said the way that we got off of that is you put negative feelings or negative, propaganda, negative thoughts around the concept and the idea of smoking. It's unhealthy. It's not cool. It's people don't want to be around you. There's different things like that, and it changed people's perspective. As a matter of fact, I think what he was saying was he was talking about how to eat healthy, and as Americans overall, we don't eat healthy, right? And we don't eat healthy because there's a lot of things in our society tell us it's okay to go and eat unhealthy.
Reward yourself, right? Treat yourself.
Yeah. Or, our sketch, it's the only thing, there's no time.
You don't have time.
Do this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this is what I got to do, so things like that. And we're led to do that. And he said, the only way we're going to be able to fix that from a society perspective is to make it just absolutely a horrible thing to do. If you do things like that, you're an absolute idiot. You're a moron. Market that. Let people know that that's the worst thing you can do. right? In order to change people's perspective about that. And I think that's, I'm not saying if you go to McDonald's, trust me,
but that's a system.
That's a system.
That's a system.
And the
that
shock
changes
that you're
behavior.
talking about, there you go. Yeah. You shock that system, you change it up and say, hey, you got to look at this a different way. You got to see it a different way. That's
that's
really
the
good
point.
thoughts.
It's the point. The point of it is of a system is it's a system that creates a certain kind of behavior, and we all have one. I mean, we're all living by one. Every behavior that you have is based on your system, which is your routines. The person that you are every single day, and the system. That's your system. And if you want to behave in a different way, you can't just try new things. You'll try them. That's why diets don't work because we'll try them within the same system, the same routines, the same person that we are, and we'll try it. It'll be cool and different for a few days, but after a while we go right back. And that's that. So you've got to create a new system of behavior, and that's the whole issue there. Yeah,
absolutely. You know what I think is a good part of a system?
What's that?
Doing your own podcast.
You're right. That's the truth.
You know why? Because when you do something or when you realize you do something that doesn't fall in line with what you preach, it really stings.
Are you speaking specifically to this second point? Sharing positive, contagious energy.
Sharing positive, contagious energy, and it could actually be a little bit of complaining too.
Which is number 3 today.
Not to give it away,
That's
but
right.
we'll talk about that soon too. But my youngest son, had a basketball game Sunday, and if you go back and watch the Facebook video of of this game, you'll hear a dad that is.
I thought you were going to say Chastity. You'll hear your wife yelling.
No. As a matter of fact, Coach. As a matter of fact, my wife Chastity and my dad were actually getting aggravated with me.
Oh.
And I could tell because of some of the responses that I was getting when I was saying stuff. But here's the thing. Here's what I realized. One, I was saying a lot of negative things about the way my son was playing. Some of them, I think, even looking back, they have merit. He did play very hard, and I'm very proud of him for that. He was very tired, and he played hard, and that means a lot, on top of everything else. But there was things that was happening that I was just like, he can't do that, he can't do that. And at one point in the game, well, to get to that, he wasn't hearing me say this. I wasn't like in the stands,
Sure.
Like I have before, right? I have before. But this is a part of my past where I've been, I'd scream at him. I did yell at him one time, but it was a positive thing to scoot up to the foul line because he was shooting foul shots from the 3-point line. But okay. that was the only time I yelled where he could hear me. Everything else was just conversation out loud, and I was just saying things, and I've been doing this as I've kind of matured as a parent with kids playing sports, and when I'm not coaching, I'll say things to myself like gosh, you got to get over, you got to close out on that kid, you know what I mean?
I understand.
Don't let him blow right by him, so I'm saying things like that. No big deal. Right? I feel like that's okay. I'm saying I'm kind of taking mental notes. I'm disappointed. I wish he would have done it better. He's not hearing me say it. There's no negative going towards him. The problem is, Coach, I forgot necessarily that I was recording this. So we have.
Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. So we have parents of some of the other players watching the recording because they weren't able to come to the game. Some of them were working. Some of them had some other things to do, and they were watching the game. So what I realized after going back and listening to myself is that basically my negativity, right, was being captured on film, and then I was absolutely, and I was spreading it to the team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm giving it to everybody else, and they can hear it in my voice. And I think even one time I forgot to move the camera because I'm filming, and it's like, so people out there are probably like, well, how did you forget you were saying it? But trust me, if everyone was sitting around me, I probably wouldn't have said what I was saying. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Because, I going back, I can hear myself and just, it's kind of embarrassing.
When you're filming, you do have people sitting beside you. They just happen to be in their living room.
Right. Yeah. It would never be something I say now. You know what I mean?
No
Talking
doubt.
to you. But, one of the things I said, I forgot to move the camera.
Yeah.
And as the ball went back up the court, I said, "Oh, sorry, folks. I missed that one." I said, "Don't worry. It was bad help side defense.
Okay.
They scored. It's nothing you haven't seen before."
A little sarcasm there, huh?
Yeah. So some negative sarcasm. And, going back and listening to that stuff, what I realized, and when I, looking at these topics here, the last thing that I was doing was sharing positive, contagious energy. I was actually doing the opposite. And it may seem innocent enough, and, I'm kind of laughing about it, but really it was a failure on my part, because any type of negative energy that you bring to a group, it doesn't have to be about athletics. Okay. It doesn't have to be about sports. It doesn't have to be about anything. Any negative energy that you bring to a group. And, I'd say sometimes people can perceive things you say as negative that really is not. It's constructive, right? So I wouldn't necessarily.
There's a difference. Yeah.
There's a difference, right? I was whining. Okay. Basically I was whining.
Sure.
Now I was taking mental note, and me and Maya did have a conversation about some of these things later, that, some of the things I feel like I was wrong about, some of the things he was like, yeah, I need to do that better. So it ended up being positive.
That's part of getting better, recognizing you have to recognize negative things.
Sure.
And point them out sometimes in order to move past them, in order to learn from them. But there's such a fine line there. We have to learn the difference, right?
Yes, absolutely. But here's the thing. Attitudes and emotions are very, very contagious.
Yes.
And you can put either negative or positive energy into your teams very easily. Yeah. Right? You can be the vitamin, you could be the mineral that does their body well, or you can be the virus. And it's very easy to be that virus. But what you need to focus on is being that positive force or energy that enhances, it enhances the performance of everybody around you. So
I asked a really young kid one time what does it mean to not be negative? Like, what is negativity to you? And I had to kind of explain it a little bit. This was an 8-year-old kid. What like something that makes you feel bad. And he said, "Don't be mean."
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good definition. It's a very simple definition of what negativity is, because there's a way to criticize where you're being mean, and there's a way to criticize where you're actually being kind. You're being loving, and you're being helpful and useful to someone. And that's what we mean by the fine line, in criticism being negative versus criticism being helpful. Negativity is one of those things where it is it's proven fact. There has been research that there are costs to negativity. Like in the business world, for example, the negativity on a typical year, they have been able to discern that, and some of this is subjective, I guess, but I think there are things that you can point to say this is a result of that. And they said that negativity cost the United States economy between $250 to $300 billion every year in lost productivity because of negativity. Doctors' offices have reported that 90% of doctor visits are stress related. And where does stress come from? Negative thoughts.
Negative thoughts, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's, people poll office workers a lot. I mean, we do these kinds of polls we have this stuff at where I work at Scripps College Communication. We'll have, these kinds of, what do you call them? In-service days and then, trainings and things like that. And you always see what is the number one cause of office stress? Well, it's complaining, which we're going to get to here in a minute. complaining and negativity. And so what happens is whenever there's negativity and felt negativity in the culture of where it is you work or the team that you're on, then it affects your morale. And if your morale is affected, then it's going to affect your performance and your productivity. A great example of this in the NFL world, look at the Cincinnati Bengals and the way they performed today.
Oh, good point.
It's an overall negative effort.
Of their, yes.
Look in many aspects.
Their control, right? Their willpower. Right? How did they, or you could say professionalism even, how did they control themselves in intense situations?
They gave up their control, didn't they?
They gave up their control. Yeah, they did. Things are kind of snowballing on them a little bit, though.
It is.
They'll have their quarterback back next year.
That's right.
So we can tell them, though, that for this year, one rule they can live by within the organization, within the locker rooms, don't complain.
Yes.
It's not going to help, right?
Yes.
But it's so easy. It's so easy to complain when things don't go our way.
It is.
How about this, Coach? You probably haven't heard anyone complain about, like, unfair NFL officials lately. You know what I mean?
Right.
We haven't heard anyone complain about how they
saying anything.
They look at replay different, like depending on how they feel that day. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to say anything. Look, Coach, you're not supposed to text me during those games, all right?
Yeah.
But it did. I have to give you a little bit of credit, or at least take the heat off, because it did start off with what? I'm not scared at all. Calm as a cucumber.
Cool as a cucumber.
Did I say cool? Because I meant to screw it up.
Calm. Yeah. Calm as a cucumber.
I think the first time I ever said that on the podcast, I said calm as a cucumber.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
That's a Patism. It's a Patism.
It's actually a Biffism from Back to the Future.
Oh, he said that?
We can call, he always said a bunch of stupid stuff like that.
Okay.
Like screen door on a battleship. It's not a screen door. It's a screen door on a submarine. You idiot.
Right.
But yeah, I can take those over. But yeah, it didn't end that way. I was as the game got closer, I was definitely a little shaken. But my wife would agree with that. But I wasn't. Yeah, I guess I was complaining, but I was just complaining to myself, right? Not to anyone else. When we're complaining within a group of our teammates, within a group of our peers, our colleagues, our coworkers, even if it's the type of complaining that makes sense, like even if you're saying the right stuff, like even if you're saying something that is wrong, you're complaining about something is wrong, it's still complaining. It's still a negative energy that you're bringing to the group.
Sometimes you're bringing it to the group, and sometimes you're bringing it to yourself. John Gordon tells a story about how when he was a freshman in college on that same Cornell lacrosse field. In fact, he said that he walked into he was upset because he didn't feel like he was playing very well. And so he said he walked into his coach's office and complained to him that he wasn't playing very well. And they said the coach got up, turned him around, walked him toward the door and said, "Hey kid, we don't talk this game. We play it. Don't complain. Go out into the field and do it." And Gordon was like, "Well, I kind of went back to my dorm just sort of angry, like that wasn't very helpful whatsoever." And he said, but looking back on it, he said he realized that he was teaching him a lesson, and that was just don't complain. Just don't do it. It's like, look, he's like, he stopped me right in my shoes. It's just something that we don't do. And I think that that's one of those things that I think complaining is one of those things that you can't decide to just sort of stop doing this. You can't decide, well, I'm only going to complain about these things, or I'm only going to, because it's so contagious. It's so disastrous. I mean, it just leaks into every aspect of our life that if we allow it in any aspect whatsoever, then it bleeds. It bleeds all over the place. It ruins everything. It's like, the one bad apple ruins the whole batch type of deal. Well, all my other apples are good. Yeah, but you know what? That one's going to ruin them all. That one complaint is going to ruin them all. And so the whole point is that, I think the way to stop complaining, the way to fix this is to stop complaining. Don't complain. And it's like, what do you mean? That's what I mean. Don't complain. Stop. 100%.
My dad told me something one time. He said a rule is a rule. No matter how big or how small that rule is, if you choose not to follow it, then for every other rule, how do you know whether you should follow it or not?
Boy, that's a wise word.
Yeah.
It's a really wise word.
And that's what you're saying. If you choose things to complain about, then what things will you not complain about?
Yeah.
Right? There's no limit at that point.
And again, someone might push back on that and say, well, there are things, like you guys just said, there are things that we've got to point out sometimes. And I think this is where you have to define it. You have to say, okay,
yes,
justified versus mindless. Most of the complaining that we do is mindless, meaning most of the things we complain about, we have no solution for.
Yep.
Or we have no way of influencing any kind of solution for the thing that we're complaining about. A justified complaint or a justified criticism is actually you identifying a problem, but then immediately beginning to focus on the solution because you have influence over actually affecting a solution for this.
Yes.
There's very few things that I think that we actually have that kind of influence on.
Right. And I think the difference there is you could say that a complaint is not an actual response.
Yes.
You are not responding to a situation. Well, you are, but it's not a productive response. Let's say that, right? Because we know, whatever situation you're in, well, a lot of people think that that's the outcome.
Right.
They're confused by that. That's the circumstance. Mm-hmm. Your response to that circumstance creates the outcome.
Right.
We talked about that a lot of times before.
But your focus in mindless complaining is on the circumstance. And
exactly.
That's the difference is where's the focus? Is the focus on a solution? Yes. Because if the focus is on a solution, you're going to point out the problem, but you're going to move from that problem and you're going to start talking about solutions versus we just keep talking about the problem again and again and again. Well, that is the definition of complaining. That's what it is. And there are actually ways. There is a way. John Gordon wrote another book called The No Complaining Rule. And this is something that I actually did with my ambassador team, my student ambassador team at the Scripps College of Communication. We sat down together a couple of years ago in one of their trainings. I always give them we do a monthly meeting and then we do a big training at the beginning of the year. And I said, when they all came back after a holiday break one year, I went through this with them and I said, I got a challenge for you. And it wasn't because they were a complaining bunch. This is a really good group of students, but it was just one of those things that we could do to get better. We could all get better. And so I said, let's talk through this. And we talked about the whole idea of what complaining is, defined it like what you and I are doing right now. And I gave them a challenge. I said, let's have a no complaining rule, which just simply means this, that none of us on this team are allowed to mindlessly complain to another person. In fact, if you hear somebody else mindlessly complaining, you're allowed to point it out to them. And I said, can we all agree with that? So if you have a problem, a legitimate problem that you see about someone, like about a coworker, about me, or about other students in the building or anything else, then you're encouraged then to bring that issue to the appropriate person, to someone that could actually be in a position to address a solution for that you can work on a solution for that together. But here was the rule. If you brought something, like if they brought something to me, like if you say, hey, this would be a great idea for our team. I'm going to make this a rule for our team. And none of our players are allowed to complain or none of our parents. Hey, let's have put this in a team meeting, right? Let's have a player and parent no complaining rule. And if you do this, if you have something that you bring to me, then here's the rule. That you believe, if you have something to bring to me that you believe is a constructive criticism, that something that we can get better in, the rule is you got to bring at least one or two, ideally, possible solutions to that complaint as well.
Yeah. Not
just the complaint, but it forces you to think about what the solutions might be to
good stuff.
To this thing.
That's really good stuff. Yeah. And the thing is, that's the beginning of a culture, of a certain culture, positive culture, I'd say. And once everybody's on board with that, things will work a lot better.
Yeah.
Man,
it will.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
I've got something else for you, Pat.
Okay.
You want to take a test here live on the podcast?
Sure.
I got a 5-question test for you, the personal test.
Uh-oh.
Friend, I'll take it too. And everybody that's listening, you guys take this as well. So if you got a pen and paper, if you've been taking any notes at all, then write these down. And the answers are like, it's like multiple choice, but you choose one, but it's like strongly agree, sort of agree, neutral, don't agree or disagree, slightly disagree, or strongly disagree. So like 6 or 7 answers that you could possibly give. But just think about the agree, disagree scale, right?
Yep.
So the first, and there's statements. So it's like Jeopardy, not questions or statements. The first statement is this: I usually share my problems with others. Let's do it this way. Let's make it a 5-point answer. A 5 is strongly agree. 4 is sort of agree. 3 is neutral. 2 is sort of disagree. And 1 is strongly disagree.
Okay.
Second statement: I regularly express my negative feelings to others.
Okay.
Third question: I focus more on the causes of problems than on the solutions. It's funny that we're doing this quiz during the time of COVID and public health and all that stuff, right?
I don't know if it's funny.
It's definitely not funny. Question number 4, moving right along. Question number 4. I like this one. If my life was made into a movie, I would characterize it as a drama instead of a love story or a comedy or an inspirational tale. My movie, the movie of my life, would be more of a drama instead of one of those.
Yeah.
Agree or disagree? And you know what? The fifth statement is very simply this: I complain a lot. And then what happens is you take a quiz like that, and then you look at an assessment. There's a rubric, right?
Right.
So if you score pretty high, you're a complainer. If you're kind of in the middle of the road.
What's the threshold here?
Well, I changed the scale, so I don't have all that with me.
Oh, okay.
What was it? Was it 5 for the there was 5 questions, so 25 would be you're a pretty darn big complainer. So I would say anything between 18 and 25, you're a pretty big complainer.
I'm off the hook.
Middle of the road complainer would probably be between 10 and 17, and then maybe not a big complainer at all would be 0 to 9.
You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to send this out to everybody that knows me.
And let them, that's what we need to do. Let other people answer for us. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But those are things, and what we're doing here? We're being conscious about something that most people aren't conscious about.
Yeah.
We're thinking about it and talking about it.
Yeah. That's why I say, why I mentioned the podcast. We've talked about this before too. With us out here talking about things that, things just hit different when you change that perception, when you shock that system and say this is no longer acceptable. And you're always going to fail. I mean, there's only one perfect person that's been on this earth, so you're always going to fail. But like you just said, being conscious about that failure, and trying to be better the next day, right? That's the important part.
It is. I have this book in front of me, The Hard Hat, that we're basing our podcast series here on how to be a great teammate. And one of the things that is spoken about George Boiardi in context of all 3 things that we've talked about here tonight: pursuing excellence, sharing positive, contagious energy, and then not complaining, is very simply this. His teammates said of him, people always felt better being around him. And I really think that summarizes what it is that we've been talking about tonight. What kind of person are you? Like if I were to spend, I don't know who you are that's listening right now, but if you and I spent 30 minutes together, would I walk away feeling better just by being around you. And my hope and my prayer is that I would be the kind of person that you could say that of me. That when you walk away after spending time with me, you don't feel like, oh, boy, that was a complaining session, or I feel kind of worse. I feel worse about the world. I feel worse about the way things are going right now, as opposed to I want people to be able to say, you know what, I feel a little energized. You know, that
Absolutely.
I like the way that person looks at the world and looks at the circumstances that we're going through. I think things are going to be all right, you know? And I think
Absolutely.
that's what they're saying, the kind of person George was. People always felt better being around him.
Man, what a great accolade, huh?
Yeah.
And when you talk about legacy,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times the legacy isn't what you accomplish in life. Your legacy is built off of what the people that you leave behind and how you motivate them,
Sure.
what you brought to them.
Yeah, because
that's a
your
huge part of
legacy
that,
is
isn't
what
it?
they say about you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Who would not want to be known as a person that made everybody feel better
Yeah.
about life when they were around you? I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
It's a great
Yeah.
accolade.
So
It's good stuff.
work on a new system, folks. Work on a new system, right? Someone comes to you and they want to stir up some negativity. Here's one tool you can use. Put this in your toolbox. Use the word but. Just use the word but. And then basically after the word but, you come up with something positive. Whatever it is they're talking about. Yeah, but, and then you turn that into something positive. You say something positive. It might be something completely different, right? Oh,
Yeah.
gosh, it's such a dark and gloomy day. Yeah, but it's going to be nice tomorrow. Yeah, but you know what? It's a good day to turn the Christmas lights on. It's dark outside, but you know what? We can light this place up. Just use the but and then something positive technique, right? That's just one tool that you can use every single day.
Coach,
Yes, sir.
Christmas lights.
I know you don't like them. I got to tell you, I was a little disappointed when I drove.
Yours look really good.
When I drove, did you see my lights?
You sent me a picture of it.
Oh, a picture. Okay. Yeah. So when I drove up the highway there, up Route 7 after last Wednesday, when I went down to do some baseball lessons, I peeked over the hill, and I didn't see any lights on the Martin house. I'm gonna have to come down a little early this week and help you string those up.
Well, I tell you what, you can do that. Do you have any in your
You don't have any.
garage? Right.
You don't have the big
You know what?
inflatable. You don't have the big
I
inflatable
did.
frosty.
We do. We had it. I think it's a Frosty or something. I can't remember what it is. It's a character of some sort. The only time that got put up was when my kids were 2 or 3, and my father-in-law came and stuck it up for him. So.
Because they're Scrooge of a dad won't do it for them.
I'm Scrooge. Yeah, Scrooge.
Your wife even
Scrooge.
called you
I don't-
Scrooge there a few weeks ago.
She did. She's right. Everyone's right. I really don't hate Christmas though. You know how many people are like have like that's the thing I've heard from these podcasts recently is, oh, Pat, you don't like Christmas? How do you not like Christmas?
Of all the things we talk about.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't hate
funny.
Christmas.
That's funny.
But you know what I say? I always say I don't like the commercialization of Christmas, and everyone always says, yeah, I know. So you know
Sure,
what I'm doing?
they agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, they are. But you know, my message is getting lost in my complaining, Coach.
Oh, that's right. You got
I
to
need
find a
to do
new
better
way.
job of that.
Need a better system.
I don't like the commercialization of Christmas.
But there it is.
Yeah,
There
I
it
really
is.
do like Christmas. I have a lot of fond memories of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very grateful during the Christmas season.
Yeah.
I don't hate Christmas, folks. Coach, it's been good talking to you.
I agree. It's been a good conversation. A lot of good stuff come out of this. I'm actually looking forward to listening to it again because there'll probably be something that I even missed during the conversation that hopefully it'll help me get
Yeah.
better at.
I'm not so sure anyone was paying attention there, but you basically said you pay no attention to what I said
I
on
only-
our podcast.
Yeah, when you're talking, I just wait for you to shut up so I can make my next point. That's
I know exactly how you feel though, because you're trying, and sometimes you're as like you're talking, I think, oh, I got something to respond to that.
Well,
and then we go a different direction.
and then you forget it, right? You forget about it
Or I'm a little bitter about it.
because we went in a different direction. Yeah, I had a really
Yeah,
great point, and now it's not going to
Now I
make any
have to jump on
sense. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, that's why I got a pen. Wherever we're talking, it'd be hard. If we ever record one of these podcasts while I'm driving, I won't be able to do it because I have a pen in my hand all the time for that very reason. Because when we talk about something and I think of something, I got to write down like a little keyword to remind me of what it was, the thought that I had. And then the same thing happens, right? If we move on to a different direction, sometimes it's like, that's not relevant anymore. I'm just going to forget that.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
Good
thanks
deal.
for joining us, everyone. We'll pick you up next week. How do you be a better teammate?
Yeah, and you know what, Pat? I think you and I talked about having some special guests on. We threw out some names of people, and I think that we could really make that happen here pretty quickly. I think we could even bring on guests and talk through these could be topics of conversation with some of those guests that we talked about having on. And so I don't think we necessarily have to wait to do that. But I think we can still, it sort of would liven up, bring a different twist to this series that we're on as well, to hear somebody else talk about it. Yeah.
Good thought.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Sure.
We know people out there want to hear from other people besides from us, basically.
You're not lying there.
All right, Coach. Sounds good. We'll try to set that up.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We'll talk to you soon, everyone.
Yep. Have a great day.